we want to welcome Professor William Ausich, who received his Bachelor's of Science degree at the University of Illinois and his AM and PhD from Indiana University. Go Hoosiers. He came to Ohio State in 1984. And currently, he is Academy Professor in the School of Earth Sciences. He has co-written and co-edited 9 books and more than 300 articles and guidebooks. His research, get this, has focused on the evolutionary paleoecology of Paleozoic marine communities with a special emphasis on crinoids. So I look forward to hearing more. And the title for today is Fossils, What They Teach Us About Extinction and Recovery. And so this is, it's being called the last lecture. So he's pretending that this is the last lecture he'll ever give. What would he say? So please join me in welcoming Bill.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to see a lot of old friends. I'm going to be very careful today because I don't want this to be my last lecture. And this is just a joke here. Paleontology is a passion for lots of young people, and some of us just don't grow up. And so here I am. And I like to. You've probably all seen this. I've stolen this from CNN. You probably all see it, but I always like it.
This is an apple. Some people might try to tell you that it's a banana. They might scream banana, banana, banana over and over and over again. They might put banana in all caps. You might even start to believe that this is a banana. But it's not. This is an apple.
So paleontologists and all scientists deal with facts.
This is an apple. Some people might try to tell you.
Okay, science is critical to the American economy and for global competitiveness. And science education is critical for the future of America. These things are all under attack right now, as a matter of fact. And it turns out that many of the big ideas that we deal with today are basically in a schism with society, which is what's shown behind that thing that's sitting up there. Things like a spherical Earth, I'll get back to that, age of the Earth, evolution and extinction, climate change, water resources, plate tectonics, continental glaciation. There are people who don't agree with many of these different things. This is from a newsletter by the National Center for Science Education Reports, 2017. I'll read to you. A reporter from WHYY Newsworks was researching a story on how local teachers navigate socially controversial topics. But chillingly, he discovered that it isn't only misinformation about climate change deniers that can make its way into the classroom. A student teacher reported a jarring episode where a number of students told him that the earth was flat. Climate change deniers, creationists, flat earthers, never a dull moment at the NCSC. And if you think I'm joking, here's the Flat Earth Society. You can Google it. They have an annual convention. What I want to know is,
It's hard to.
where's this hotel? I'd love to go there.
Very cool.
It's just so bizarre.
Okay, so the theme of my talk, which is what Bob Dylan taught us when we were young, is that the times are changing. This is a picture of a robin, and I'll tell you a little story. that, this has been now 20 or so years ago. I was visiting my hometown in Illinois, or our hometown in Illinois. And one of my mother's friends cornered me and said, I hear that climate change is not real. I heard it on the radio. I won't tell you what radio station it was. And I looked at her and I said, Marianne, the robins are coming earlier and leaving later. And they don't have a political agenda. And as you all know, robins stay here year round. The climate is changing, both from a small scale, to the large scale things that we worry about. But today I want to mostly concentrate on extinction. And, in historical times, we know that there are organisms that have gone extinct, and we had something to do with that. The dodo was an island in the Atlantic, the Carolina parakeet. Ever heard of that? There were apparently billions of these flying over the US when when Western Europeans came, and we basically killed them all. We shot them all. They're extinct now. And there are many, many different things. There's, the quail hog, the ivory-beaked woodpecker, all these different things that historically we know have gone extinct since we've been around. And the extinction today is a function of temperature increase, climate change, habitat destruction, and invasive species. These are the three main drivers of the extinctions that are happening today. And this is the so-called hockey stick curve. This is a history of temperatures taken from a variety of sources back to the year 1000. And you can see there's a nice even oscillation. And then about 1900, boom, it's on this escalation rise. And that's where we are today. So the rate of temperature change is exceedingly high compared to what it has ever been in the recent past. And that's a problem. And you can do this in a lot of ways. I just pulled this from a slide that Warren Thompson gave me. This is in the Eastern Himalayan Mountains, 1921. The mountains are covered with glaciers. Glacier came all the way down to the floor of the valley here. And today, this glaciers are in 2009, it's a retreat up to here, the lake in front of the glacier, and all the glaciers have sort of retreated back up. So that, there's plenty of evidence that things are warming. And that's an important thing. And we also know that in the Pleistocene, which was, 12,000 years ago, there was a major extinction when mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, etc., saber-toothed tigers went extinct. And they were here before 12,000 years ago. And I can attest to that personally. I was actually doing work at the University of Michigan, ready to leave on Saturday morning, and the paleontologist I was staying with, he worked on mammoths, and he got a call that a farmer was digging a trench to drain his field. You can see it there, and he uncovered a bunch of big bones. And so just like the Ghostbusters, this mammoth guy, got together, and I stayed an extra day, and we went out and we started to dig up this mastodon. And there I am. But there I am, helping to do this. This is one of these pictures that, when your mother sees it, she says, I paid for you to go to college to do this. And this is what I was working on at the time. Here's a mammoth skull. The eye is here. You can see the teeth. It's actually a mastodon, sorry. Here's a vertebra, and here are some ribs that are just under the farmer's field. Okay, so again, we know these animals were here. There's no question about it. And of course, the flip side of extinction is evolution, because you couldn't have evolution without extinction, because the globe is full. And things have to change in order for there to be room for things to evolve. But again, that's not the topic of my discussion here, although I do want to show this. I love this picture. This is from 1978, a different Michigan colleague. This is from the northwestern Wyoming. What this shows is a statistical measure for morphology. And this is feet. These are the rocks in western Wyoming. So this is up to like 1,500 feet of rock. And so he sampled these fossils all the way through here, measuring each one at every level. And, you know, they change, they split, they become extinct, they split again, go extinct, etc. So, you know, we can actually map out this physical change in the morphology to document that evolution actually does take place. Okay, this is the geological timescale. The Earth is something like 4.6 billion years old. Most of it's the Precambrian. And then the very top is the Phanerozoic, the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. This is, you know, Jurassic Park, you know what that is. It's after the Cretaceous, the dinosaurs went extinct. I'm going to be talking about this part of the section mostly today. Here, in a more fanciful presentation of geological time, and if we look at Ohio, what we have in Ohio is Ordovician through Permian rocks at the surface of Ohio. These rocks are all on the subsurface, and then it's just these uppermost rocks that are part of the Pleistocene, part of the glacial era, and today they're at the very top of our geological column. So all these rocks, all the time represented by those rocks is actually missing in Ohio. It's present elsewhere. And here's a geological map of Ohio. The oldest rocks, the rocks are bowed, so the oldest ones are in here, and get younger and younger into the so-called Appalachian Basin and into the Michigan Basin. Ohio is actually famous for its fossils. This is a trilobite, you can mostly see, and these rocks are from the Cincinnati. That fossil is from the Cincinnati area. In fact, the part of the rocks, the part of the Ordovician is actually called on a global basis the Cincinnatian. So it's named after the wonderfully fossiliferous rocks in Ohio. And then up here in the Cleveland area, Dunkleosteus is the United States vertebrate fossil. This was like a 30 to 40 foot long jawed fish. And they found these really good skeletons in Ohio when they excavated the interstate around Cleveland. And, you know, we actually have one of those in the Orton Museum, a cast of one of those in the Orton Museum. Okay, let's look at a deeper slice of time. This is the history of the number of genera in the ocean for the last 500 million years. And there are lots of ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. And statistically, people have documented that there have been 5 great mass extinctions. Mass extinctions is behind that. These are major times when life went extinct. The one you're most almost extinct. The one you're most familiar with is here at the end of the Cretaceous, when the dinosaurs became extinct, as well as other things. But actually, this is the most significant, and the second most significant mass extinction is here at the end of the Ordovician, which is what I want to talk about today. Again, this is what you're most familiar with. The end Cretaceous extinction event occurred because a major meteorite hit the Earth. And we went into a period of 1 or 2 years where the sun was all blocked out from the debris. Everything got frozen, basically, and dinosaurs, being poor warm blood organisms, basically couldn't handle that. But, you know, if you want to see these majestic creatures became extinct, this is Cryolophosaurus in the Jurassic of Antarctica in the lobby of Orton Hall on the Ohio State campus. And if you ever get a chance to go down there, you should take a look at that. Okay, well, so what can we do about understanding extinctions today? Well, we can do one thing, and I don't want to be insulting to any biologist, but we can watch organisms go extinct and sort of wring our hands and go, oh my goodness, what's going on? Okay, but there are some more positive things we can do. We can eliminate the primary threats of global warming, pollution, ocean acidification, deforestation, invasive species. We can protect endangered habitats. We can protect refugia of endangered organisms, understand the physiological or genetic attributes of an organism that help survival. E.O. Wilson, who is a famous Harvard biologist, he wrote a book called Half Earth, Our Planet's Fight for Life. And in that book, he suggested that we keep half of nature like it's supposed to be. And then we might be okay. And I don't want to get political. This is a slide from a long time ago. But I will note that Trump's view on this is we can save a little. Or we can study global change, extinctions, and fauna recovering in deep time in the correct time span at which extinctions and recoveries take place. And that's in the realm of a paleontologist. So that's one thing that I do. Okay, and if I'm going to do it, I'm going to work on a group of fossils as my specialty called crinoids. And, you know, here's a 340 million year old fossil crinoid. There's a rock that's composed entirely of the stems of crinoids, etc. So crinoids belong to the phylum Echinodermata, which are classic seashore organisms like starfish and sand dollars and sea urchins. And crinoids are still living today. The best place, the closest you are to a living crinoid would be to go down in the Florida Keys, that is, if climate change hasn't killed all the ones that used to be there, or to the Bahamas, where this is in San Salvador Island in the Bahamas. And these little things dangling from a crevice in a reef that's out there are actually crinoid arms. These are really pretty cool animals. This is a specimen from the Pacific Ocean. If you want to see a crinoid that's like the ones in the Paleozoic, which it means ones that have a stem that attach to the bottom, you need to get in a submersible and go down at least 100 meters, and they're there. This is in the Straits of Florida. These are, you know, majestic creatures, in my opinion. Okay, and again, in the geological past, this is a slab of rock from Iowa, and it's just covered with these complete specimens. This is a, this is a disaster. Basically, there was a living community, and it just got buried intact, and it stayed buried, and everything's stayed complete. Again, that's about 340 million years old. Okay, here again are our mass extinctions. What I want to do is to talk about this mass extinction that took place at the end of the Ordovician, so the end of the rocks that we have around Cincinnati, which is the second most devastating mass extinction on Earth. I tried to do my dissertation on that, but we couldn't find anything new, so I had to go do something else. My first job was at Wright State University, and okay, so here's the end Ordovician early slurry where the star is the time interval we're going to look at. My very first job was at Wright State University in Dayton. And the very first graduate student I took out in the field, he wanted to work on studying carbonate rocks, limestones. And we went to this quarry that's now called the Oak Parks Quarry, which is black behind that. And this is in that extinction interval, but we didn't know much of anything. And I told my graduate student, now, look, keep your eye on me, find a crinoid, it could be very significant. Well, we found the mother lode of crinoids in this quarry. I spent the next decade studying. And, to help fill in that gap, that knowledge gap, that time gap. So I give you an idea. This is on Highway 32 in southern Ohio. This is the boundary between the Ordovician and the Silurian, but it actually represents a big time gap. That's what we call nonconformity. So in the geological time, we have time represented up to here in Cincinnati, a little bit up here, and then none up there. So, the next thing to do for me to work on this interval was to find a place where there were rocks of this age. So I could fill in that gap, that time gap even more. And it turns out that place is Anacostia Island. The most remote place in North America that no one has ever heard of. It's this huge island out in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, Maine. And there's the geology where the youngest rocks are down here, the oldest are up there. And then these are all the rock geography that's actually there. Anacostia Island is a remarkable place. You try to figure out how to get there, which isn't always easy. And but once you get there, you load up your truck full of food and empty bags for fossils. There's a mile of paved road on this island. This is the main road down the center of the island. And I could talk about that forever, but it's a beautiful place. The eastern 2/3 is a virgin spruce forest. There are beautiful bedrock streams where you can get to all the rocks. And the coastlines are fantastic. And there are also, here's another one. This is a put off on Boz at the westernmost part of the island. These are little reefs. And the Ordovician Florian extinction boundary is just right along there. Okay, so. And the rocks are full of fossils. There's trilobites, brachiopods. These are various snails.
Nope.
Oh.
But somebody watching on Zoom.
How did you find out that that was the only location in North America?
Yeah, well, first, there have been very few things published on it before. When I got to Ohio State, I contacted the people at the Canadian Geological Survey, wondering if it'd be possible for me to go there, and they said, stay away, I'm working on it. So I went and worked on something else. And probably coincidentally, within a few months of that person dying, somebody else invited me to go with them, to go up there. Okay. And of course, there are crinoids there as well.
Don't mess with me.
Oh, we need, okay, I can do that. Okay, so, and the reason why we do, more field work is, this is an example. Before I got there were 8 species of crinoids known in that locality. And in 2 publications, a monograph in 2010 and a paper, another one, we now know that there are 63 species assigned to 41 genera that occur in that time interval, including 12 new genera and 55 new species. So this was just a time gap where we knew nothing, and now we do. And again, to emphasize that again, here in Ohio, we have no record of this length of time. And here we fill up that gap with more than 200 meters of rock that represent time that are on that. Okay, so how can I wrap this up for you? Was there really a mass extinction in crinoids at the end of the Ordovician? And once all mining data are incorporated into a global database, this is the number of genera through time for the Ordovician, for the early Silurian, very low, and then it boosts up and then down, it oscillates. The question that you could legitimately ask is is that actually extinction, or is that just oscillation on a on a incline? So it doesn't really mean anything. And so what we do statistically to test that sort of thing is to try to standardize the data so that the samples are comparable. So this is statistically standardized to the number of genera, to the biofacies. And this is what we see then. Once the error bars are these vertical lines. And in both cases, it's very low, then it shoots way up, sort of plateaus in layer division, and then falls. And it falls beyond, the statistically relevant window. So these are in fact, there is in fact a mass extinction that occurs right there. And so, there's that extinction. And, interestingly enough, there are other signs of a mass extinction. You're familiar with Gulliver's Travel and the Lilliputians? Well, what oftentimes happens is that after a mass extinction, the faunas that continue after that are small. And that takes a while, like millions of years, for them to start to get large and be like they were before. And so, these are, it's just a piece of rock, and things are like, just a few, maybe a centimeter long, maybe not even that long. If we track this through time, which I won't dwell on because I'm running out of time, as we go from oldest to youngest to youngest to youngest, these are the numbers, these are taxa, this is the mean body size in millimeters cubed. And we get to the extinction, which is right here, and there are very few small things, takes a while to recover, and then all of a sudden things get bigger again in the rock record. Okay, so for this Ordovician extinction, the cause is from global climate cooling. It was a very rapid glacial cooling, things cool down, glaciers build up. And when glaciers build up, where does that water come from? The opposite of today. When you put water into ice, it drains the oceans. And so these shallow water habitats, became land, and the organisms living in them had no place to go. Just very, very small area. And, so there's both global cooling and habitat destruction that's associated with that extinction. Okay, thinking about extinctions a little bit more, Al Gore told us that there was an inconvenient truth about climate change. And sadly, he was right. Today, we are actually in the midst of the 6th great mass extinction. And I can confidently say that because the rate of extinction today is greater than it ever was in the past. And that's, kind of chilling at some level. This is a paper published 2015 by Rockstrom, in which he tried to define the planetary boundaries that must not be transgressed in order to have a safe operating space for humanity on Earth. And that was in 2015. Here's a little small depiction. These include things like climate change, biosphere integrity, freshwater, geochemical ocean acidification, etc. This dashed line is the safe operating space. According to his calculations, we crossed 4 of those boundaries in 2015. We get up 8 years later, we've crossed 6 of those boundaries. So, it's kind of chilling. The United Nations report in 2019 said that there are 1 million species at risk of extinction now. And, that's probably an underestimation. Wow. And it's due to many things, but this astronomical increase in temperatures is one of the main factors. So I hope that I and my grandchildren don't have to wave goodbye to this majestic creature sometime. And I want to end by reminding you that extinction is forever. Thank you very much.
Bill graciously finished early to allow time for discussion, for questions and responses. So I'd like to invite you to bring any questions right now.
It's not a question, it's comment. When I went to Miami University,
Sure.
I wanted to study anthropology and geology. And they were, women don't go into that field. And I thought, oh, how cool it would be to be a geologist. I was a school teacher right there, but it was so sad because they were so discouraging.
Yeah, well, the female faculty, undergraduates, when I was at the University of Illinois, they were actively discouraged not to go into paleontology. And I won't tell you the reason why, but I went into geology in general. But in today's world, I don't know what the count is, but we hire more women as faculty members at Ohio State today, probably than men. So, that has changed in many fields, including geology.
Yeah, what a field trip was great. I did the geology, I did take, and the field trips were just, we went down to Cincinnati first.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, for me, I grew up in middle of a small town in the middle of a cornfield, like many places in Ohio. And as far as I was concerned, I lived on a pool table. As flat as can be. I still am shocked at how flat. This is Columbus is hilly compared to the place where we grew up.
right.
When I actually did enter geology, so I was debating between geology and biology as a major. And of course, as a paleontologist, I'm still trying to figure out which one I am. The first course I took was called physical geology. And part of that was something called glacial geomorphology. So that's the landforms left by glaciers when they retreat. And all of a sudden, this completely featureless pool table I lived on had a meaning. You could understand the landscape. And it's like, oh, that's cool. I'm here for the long haul. Yeah.
As an educator, how do we take this message forward and maybe take the politics out of it? Maybe it's created, since Algor was the one who brought us to this for the first time and became political. But how would you recommend that a society adopt this?
Yeah, well, as a society, in today's political world, I have no idea. Because you have to believe facts. There is no such thing as alternative facts. Facts in science are basically, the committee of scientists agree that this is the best explanation we have. As I would tell my students when I teach evolution, do you think, well, I say, this is a little disturbing. I said, faculty members are, fame-seeking egomaniacs. And they would all shake their heads. But I said, do you think for a minute that if I could disprove evolution and maybe get a Nobel Prize, become more famous than Charles Darwin, become a millionaire from the book side, so do you think for a minute that I would not do that? And no one has done it for 150 years. Because that is the best explanation we have. Even the previous Pope said that evolution is the best explanation for the history of life on Earth. So, it's not even a religious science thing. Although I told that to a class once and somebody raised their hands, well, Catholics are Christians, but you can debate that. I don't know.
There it is.
Bill,
But basically, you have to start with facts. Yeah, I mean, in a classroom, you need to start, you just show them the facts. And see if the students can sort of understand things, within a really well-checked fact basis. I mean, that's the only way you can go.
Bill, what are you doing? You're a retired professor,
Yeah,
but what are you doing in your retirement?
I'm continuing research.
Good.
You know, I don't have to put up with all the university nonsense. And, you know, I just, right now, I'm working on, Permian faunas, which is the biggest mass extinction. I just published a paper on crinoids from Slovenia, and I'm working on ones from Oman, of all places. So, you know, I mean, it just I'm doing the fun part of my job. I like to say that, you know, I got into this because I had a passion for it. And then I got a university job, and along with that, you know, along, you know, and that was my day job. And so I did research in the evenings and on the weekends, and now I can just return to my passion.
So if we can agree on the facts, what are steps that can be taken to prevent mass extinction?
Well, to prevent mass extinction, you know, we do need to try to keep the climate from continuing to warm. And, you know, geologists are kind of between a rock and a hard place there, because we also find oil and, you know, petroleum products are part of the reason. We need this. We just need to find alternative sources and cycle away from that. I mean, we're always going to need oil, because that's the main product, the source of all kinds of things in our society, like plastics, that we are not going to give up. We do need to preserve natural habitats. I mean, I think that E.O. Wilson was good. I mean, if we can keep as much natural habitats open as we can and available to species, you know, the habitat destruction. Already forgot third. We just need to make an effort to stop the things that are going to continually cause invasive species. That's another hard one. That's another hard one to deal with, but I mean, that's clearly a problem.
The question I was going to ask was the same thing as Tom asked, but one of the things I've read recently is we can all do something. And one thing we can do is increase our lawns to natural habitat instead of green grass. We could stop mowing all the verges of the highways and let the native plants grow. We can do this. And it's easy and it's cheap and nobody wants to do it.
Yeah, well, it's hard to break our habits.
It is.
Yeah. But we need to take, you know, we need to take individual steps that actually a more global view. And, you know, we sadly, you know, a country this big and this rich as we have here, you know, we are causing changes not only for us, but for people all over the world, as are other countries. We're not the only guilty one. Yes.
How is it the species or exhibits get buried in rock? I always think of what forms rock around things.
Oh, yeah. Well, this fossil here was part of it lived on a delta during the Mississippian, and just a big storm came by and buried it. And buried it alive, and then it just became, the silt on the delta turned into siltstone, turned into rock, and this was just encased within it.
So it gets pressed, the silt gets pressed and turns into rock, or
Well, in this case, this is the original one. This is made out of the mineral calcite, which is the original mineralogy that this had. So this has never been changed that much. It has never been, you know, buried deep enough to become a metamorphic rock. Because if it was, then the heat and pressure deep in the earth would change everything. So, yeah, this is way too much, but had high magnesium calcite, which is unstable at the Earth's surface, but inside a body, it's okay. And so that high magnesium leaked out, but everything else is the same as when it was alive. And in this case, you know, this is a limestone. And basically, this was a place where there were so many crinoids, you couldn't even gotten close to the bottoms. But when they died, their skeletons fell apart, and that became the seafloor. And then eventually, it also got buried. And so, you know, this is, again, for the most part, this is the same mineralogy as what it was when it was alive. Actually, it looks pretty good here for this one. It can change, but This one looks pretty much intact. Yes.
Yeah, from your presentation, I think this one is more global issue.
A global issue?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, so how is it being dealt with globally?
Well, the UN keeps making proclamations and nobody pays much attention. And, you know, I mean, economics is the driver of what everybody does, and, you know, it's not, you know, it's gonna cost money. Things that have to change, and change is hard.
Change is hard.
Are China and the US the two biggest offenders?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Yeah, it's close. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was something that was predicted in the 1960s called the Hubbard curve. And the Hubbard curve was an assessment of the amount of oil in the rocks in the United States that was recoverable. And they showed that it was gonna peak out and we wouldn't get any more oil. And even when we knew that, we didn't do anything to try to find an alternative. Nobody was serious, no national seriousness in it. Unfortunately, fracking completely blew that curve out the window. And I have other issues with fracking, but, you know, we now have, you know, the United States is the biggest oil producers in the world right now. Oh, well. I'm glad I didn't go work for Texaco, which was one of my alternative jobs for graduate school.
My neighbor is into fracking and it is breaking. He's got, I don't know how many, 7 or 8 wells.
Yeah.
He's fracking. Breaks my heart.
Yeah, well, with fracking, I worry, well, Ohio has an abundance. Like no version, you know, in this area, like almost no place else in the world of good quality water. And I'm worried about fracking damaging that. And, you know, fracking beneath a state forest doesn't do much for me either. But that's just me, I'm just an idealist. Okay, well, any other questions? Yes.
So where do you find hope?
Do you find hope?
I kind of had to think about it. I mean, I just hope that people will come to their senses eventually. And it'll like everything else, it'll take some kind of something that will really slap people in the face. To you know, to get their attention, to try to stop things. And, you know, the leader, all companies need to take a leadership role. You know, the governments need to take a leadership role, follow the recommendations of the UN, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what it'll take us to fall off that cliff, I'm not sure, get to reasonable thinking. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And encourage you, if you'd like to talk, you know, as we're finished, feel free to bring any further questions. I'd like to close in prayer. Okay, let us pray. Lord, we thank you for Bill and for his teaching, for his courage and honesty, for his gifts. And Lord, we pray that you would be with us and bless your people, bless leaders around the world. Help us, oh God, to listen to facts and to respond with courage and creativity and faithfulness. In Jesus' name we ask it. And all God's people say, Amen. Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you. I guess we should put it. Oh,
Yeah. On the race, yes.
Okay, race.
So in my.
How are you?
Here. They don't.